Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. Tonight is Tuesday, May 1st, and it's 7 o'clock p.m., and we will proceed. As we do with every meeting, we do want to introduce you to your City Council, and we'll start with a roll call.
Council members Jamison. Here. Karski.
Here.
Rolfing.
Here.
Aguilar.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Entenmann.
Here.
Erpenbach.
Here.
As is almost always the case, we've got all of your City Council here tonight, which is tremendous. We also start every meeting with an invocation, and tonight we're very, very blessed to have Pastor Jason Muller of the Ransom Church. The Ransom is they just moved their church downtown in Sioux Falls, and it's on 3rd and Main. Pastor Jason, we're certainly glad that you're here. After the pastor is done with the invocation, we'd ask you to remain standing, and then we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Jason.
Let us pray. Father, God of heaven and earth, we come to you thankful, grateful, and joyful. We are thankful for all the opportunities that you have provided Sioux Falls when there has been economic woe for so many other communities. We have received your continued blessing. Let this prosperity not go unnoticed to the others, that we still seek your presence at our government and civic meetings, that we are a community that is thankful as we worship together in all of your churches within this city. We are grateful for the leaders you have chosen for this community. We know, Father, that you are sovereign. Together, we pray that we honor each other as we lead this city. May the world know that we are a grateful people who want and desire your leadership. As we come together and seek your will for this community, we are grateful for your wisdom and guidance, and we seek you in prayer to receive more. We are joyful for your presence at this time as we gather together. I ask you to remind us of the need for our fellow brothers and sisters of this community, for those who have not chosen their circumstances, so that we can serve them and love them, that they will know that they are still part of this community. We pray that we can make a difference in their life for an eternal impact, that they can know joy. Father, I pray for Mayor Mike Huther, Sue, Michelle, Kenny, Vernon, James, Greg, Dean, and Rex, and the city employees. I ask that the Holy Spirit intercede in their life this week in some special way, that they would feel a special comfort from the role that they've been asked to serve. Father, I ask a blessing on each person and their family, and I ask a blessing on each member of the community that is present today. May we offer and seek your grace for the decisions that are made today. We lift this up in the name of your Son. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you very much. We'll now move on to tonight's consent agenda. Council, any motions or comments?
Move approval, Aguilar.
Second, Karski.
It's been a motion.
I need to recluse myself from this.
Very good, Councilor Heineman. Thank you. Councilor Heineman is going to leave for just a brief period of time. Councilor Aguilar has made a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. It was seconded by Councilor Karski. Is there any discussion? Very good. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Aguilar.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Thank you. That has passed 7-0. Now moving on to tonight's regular agenda. Council, any changes or motions or comments?
Move approval, Erpenbach.
Second, Jamison.
Councilor Erpenbach's made a motion to approve tonight's regular agenda. It was seconded by Councilor Jamison. If there is no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Aguilar.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Entenmann.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Thank you. That is also passed 8-0. Thank you. We wanted to truly thank all of you for being here tonight. I know the City Council certainly appreciates it, and certainly so do I. It shows that you're engaged in your community and you're willing to participate in your government. The city councilors in front of you, they are extremely hardworking and I can assure you they're a caring group. They value all opinions, and they strongly reach out to constituents, city staff, and others to learn about the topics and issues that they are engaged in each day. They take their role extremely seriously, and so do I. We know that many of you are here tonight for item number 50, otherwise known as the Walmart rezoning request. Again, we certainly appreciate all of you being here. Prior to tonight's meeting, your city council, these 8 women and men in front of you, they did the following to prepare. They watched the Planning Commission meeting. They met with neighborhood representatives, including the Save Our Neighborhoods group. They met with Walmart representatives. They met with the superintendent of the school who's here tonight. They had meetings with a number of constituents, and they read and answered a bevy of emails from folks out there. They worked with the planning and zoning staff. They met with the legal team, the public works team, and again, they read all of the emails that were sent along with the letters and answered the phone calls from a number of good people here in Sioux Falls. I don't know if they personally responded to all of them, but I know the ones that were sent to me, I personally responded to each one. Realizing this, however, the City Council still wants to provide an opportunity for public input on this item. Here's just some of the things that they would encourage you to consider. Any new information tonight would certainly receive preferred treatment. We prefer that the dialogue not be repetitive, if at all possible. Prefer that the topics are factual if possible. However, we certainly realize that emotions and feelings will play a role in tonight's discussion. We just ask that you stay productive, professional, and yes, indeed, neighborly. Personal attacks, they're not necessary. And honestly, they won't help you with the cause anyway. Tonight, I've been asked by the City Council to allow 40 to 45 minutes of public input. There will be 20 minutes provided for those who oppose the plan, and then another 20 minutes provided for those who are in favor of the plan. Individual input will be limited to 5 minutes each. With this in mind, the City Council encourages you to organize the order of your speakers. As well as the topics that each speaker would cover, and then if you can estimate the duration of each, again realizing that there's 20 minutes for those who oppose it and 20 minutes for those who are in favor of it. Want to make sure that you're aware you've got plenty of time to kind of organize your strategy. I would estimate that item number 50 will come up at about 7:30, 7:45. But certainly we'll make sure that everybody's in place and ready to go before we start item number 50. My job tonight is basically to facilitate the meeting, and I'll do the absolute best that I can, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. I do want to thank you on behalf of the City Council for your cooperation. This is also an opportunity for the City of Sioux Falls to engage the City Council on other topics as well. If there is anyone who wants to speak to the Council on another topic, on something that is not on the agenda, this is a time when I'd ask you to come forward, state your name, and again, if you could limit your comments to 5 minutes or less, we would appreciate that. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Roger Algersma. I came here twice before about the problems with the levee system before the plans were final for the upgrades, and both times then Mayor Munson asked me to come talk to him and Mark Cotter about it, which I did, and I both pointed out things that I thought were problems, and I pointed out things that I thought were very good on the old system, and that should be kept. And I seen on the bike trail since your last meeting here a spot that absolutely did not stay as good as before. It's quite dangerous, in fact. When I was a kid, I asked my grandpa, who was a Dutch immigrant, I says, if water and dirt make mud, how can the dikes hold the sea out for 100 years without soaking through? Seemed to me that would turn to mud someday. And he said, well, it's a good question, but there's a secret to it. You got to keep the top of the dike dry. And if you don't, it'll turn to mush and just flatten out. Well, I'd remembered when Katrina came through New Orleans, and they had a levee that they'd upgraded by putting an 8-foot concrete wall on top. And when the water got 4 feet up that 8-foot concrete, the water was at the top of the dirt and it turned to mush, and the concrete wall is found 40 to 50 feet off to the side. And Dave Munson says to Mark, I seen it. I seen the same thing on TV, and he remembered exactly like I did. So I'm riding on the bike trail the other day, and I come past, I also says, it's very good to keep the bike trail on top of the levee, because that little piece of asphalt is a great little roof to keep the top of the levee dry. Well, the only place they didn't do it is by the country club. And flooding them now is not a good way to get them to leave. But I don't think that's why it was done that way. I think they just didn't want you to see them as you ride by. They have a 6 to 8 foot concrete wall instead of raising the levee. And they have the bike trail down by the river. And if that water gets into that concrete wall, the country club's the first thing that's going to get flooded. That concrete wall is doing absolutely no good as far as raising the levee. All it does is keep you from seeing the country club. So I think that spot's got to be fixed. It looks like a real disaster to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Is there anyone else who wanted to engage the council? Welcome.
I'm I.L. Weideman from Sioux Falls, Mayor, Council. I have a question pertaining to a statement that Mr. Smith made. And it pertains to not letting us know how many people want to put their names involved with the event center and how much they've bid to do it. The feedback that I get from Des Moines, Sioux City, Council Bluffs, Omaha, Brookings, Watertown, are we in a pay-per-view or pay-to-play situation where this is going to be kept secret and people are going to pay individuals to get their name put on this event center? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weinerman. Folks, anybody else? Well, very good, very good. Let's move on to item number 44.
Item number 44 is an appeal of a conditional use permit 2012-0804 in the RD Residential District to construct 4-unit residential buildings at 6808 and 6816 South Witzke Avenue. Legal description, lots 8 and 9, Block 21, Platinum Valley Edition. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Ms. Cooper.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mike Cooper, representing Planning and Building Services tonight. The first item that we have is an appeal of a decision that was made at the last regular Planning Commission meeting regarding approval of 2 4-unit residential buildings. The applicant is Glenn Foster, and is Mr. Foster in the audience tonight? Okay, very good. And just as a little background in terms of process, our zoning ordinance provides for conditional use permits to go to the City Planning Commission for their consideration at a public hearing. Based on the decision of the Planning Commission, that can be final, or anyone can appeal a decision of the Planning Commission to the City Council. And so tonight we're hearing such an appeal. Again, Mr. Glenn Foster is the petitioner representing Cascade Townhomes. This is a proposed development in the Platinum Valley Edition. This particular area is west of South Louise Avenue and just north of West 77th Street. And Mr. Foster had requested approval to construct 2 4-plexes. This is an area that's zoned such that a 4-plex requires a conditional use permit. Single family and twin homes would be allowed without a public hearing. At the public hearing for the Planning Commission, we have a consent agenda. This was on the consent agenda based on the lack of public input that we had heard or comment. And unfortunately, some of the citizens that were present at the Planning Commission meeting, there was some confusion that they were not able to get up and speak and ask this to be considered as part of the regular agenda. So after the Planning Commission approved this as part of their consent agenda, we heard from the group of neighbors that they would like this to be heard one more time. In this particular area, there are existing fourplexes directly to the north. On the west side of Witzke Avenue is twin homes, and then west of that is single family. And then to the south of the proposed fourplexes is currently vacant, and that's proposed for twin homes. So there's this transition from fourplexes to twin homes. And then on the east side, or to the right side of the fourplexes, is commercial and office abutting up against Louise Avenue. The appeal was submitted by the Witzke Homeowners Group, the residents of the twin homes on the west side of the street. Their concern is the value of the fourplexes, the proposed construction value, the market value of those structures. And they also have concerns about parking and traffic along the street with the existing development that's in this area. Mr. Foster obviously is here tonight to speak to the neighborhood concerns. He did conduct a neighborhood meeting prior to the Planning Commission hearing. And the fourplexes, I'm listening to the siren going off. The fourplexes will be two-story buildings. There'll be 6 garage parking spaces. There we go. This shows a proposed floor plan of the two-story structure. And then there's an elevation showing the front of the buildings. You can see that there's a total of 6 enclosed parking spaces. So for 4 units, our minimum parking requirement is 1 space per unit for 2 bedrooms. And this is actually showing 6 parking spaces. And that's another change that we want the neighborhood to know, is that the fourplexes that are existing are 3 bedrooms. These are proposed to be 2-bedroom. So that's a quick background. And again, both the applicant and the neighborhood association is here to comment on this item tonight.
Very good. Thanks, Mike. Before the council acts on this item, is there anyone who wanted to come forward and speak to this item? Welcome.
Mayor Huther,
Welcome.
council members. My name is Dale Van Conant, and I'm here representing the Witzke Homeowners Association, as I am their secretary. We have a serious concern with the plan changes for our neighborhood. Those parking spaces that you see on those pictures there, that's our homes. Now you can take a look at what's across the street presently, and we're going to see that's a parking lot. That's not inside parking. Those are the townhomes that are there now. The changes, if approved, would allow Cascade Builders to erect 2 fourplexes instead of the 4 twin homes that were originally planned to be built on these lots. These lots are on the east side of Witzke, has been said, and our twin homes are on the west side. We know that Mr. Foster is a very competent contractor with good intentions, but it will be a continuation of a zoning disaster that has happened on the east side of Witzke Avenue. This is a prime example of good intentions gone bad, causing decent people to lose property value as a result. Those lots are zoned for twin homes, so let's leave it that way, so we can have homes with owners, not renters. Mr. Foster thinks that he can sell these units. Well, the other builder thought he could sell his units. They didn't sell. There's one lessee leases the house, and then he subleases to 3 other people. And now you've got 4 cars going in 1 garage, and you can see it. The problem with the garages are they're all full of clothing and suitcases, and you can't get anything in there anyway. Our concern is the valuation of our properties. We feel very strongly about this as our own properties have lost value ever since the townhomes went up on those lots in 2007. Our properties were valued at $170,000 to $200,000 per unit in 2007 and sold faster than the contractor could build them. Then the townhomes started to be rented, and ever since then, we feel we have lost 4% of value each year because of the townhomes. We realize that the economy has also cost us valuation, but our homes are targeted to a group that doesn't want a lot of steps. We don't want outside maintenance, so we contract that out. Prospective buyers come, look, see the situation across the street. They don't want to live there. They go somewhere else. The contractor that built our homes has spent the last year in St. Louis helping his family and their construction business because nothing's selling. An example of our fears is evident every day with the built but unsold townhomes on the east side of Whiskey Avenue. They are, for the most part, rentals. I've counted as many as 20 cars parked outside of those buildings every morning, except this morning. I don't know why, there was 10. Tonight, when I came home from work, there was 1. I don't know who got to them, but somebody did. And those garbage containers are out there every day, all day. They should be there on garbage pickup day. But there's no room in the garages. This is a prime example of the zoning nightmare I mentioned early. Would any of you want this in your neighborhood? And your homes are valued more than mine are. We don't think any of you would tolerate this situation. We believe that the proposed fourplexes would just add to this problem. Please don't let the cancer in our neighborhood continue to grow. We are strongly in favor of leaving the property zoned for twin homes, and we hope that Cascade Builders will build them because he builds good homes. We hope he builds them to mirror our houses. If you really think about this situation being in your neighborhood, we are very confident you will not allow this aberration to continue. Drive down, take a look, and we know that you will agree with us. Thank you for listening.
Dell, thank you. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak to this item? Welcome.
Glenn Foster, Cascade Builders, 1905 Devon, Sioux Falls. I guess what I wanted to say is I did have a neighborhood meeting with the people, and we discussed kind of what their problems were with the neighborhood about the parking. And what I told them I would do is I'd take them bedrooms down from 3 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms, and then we increase the parking. The ones that are existing right now are all 3-bedroom units with single-stall garages. So what we've done is we increased them to double-stall garages, and the ones that are left single, they're oversized single. So we lost 2 bedrooms and we added 4 parking spots. And then in saying that, just to the east of me is Louise, is 300 feet from this property. 50 feet from my property line of the lots that I own is a liquor store and some other retail, commercial, and it's more kind of a transitional zoning thing, I think, because it goes from retail, commercial into kind of a multifamily, 4-plex townhome, twin homes, and single family onto the east as it goes into the single family development. If we had the pictures that were up there, you could see some of the retail that's there. There's actually a road from the retail that goes right into this on Whiskey. And on the end of the street, there's a bar. There's Craven, it's at the end of the bar. Security National Bank is also down at the end on the same block on the same street. So I guess my whole point is I want to keep the neighborhood bright. That's why we changed the bedrooms and we increased the parking. We almost doubled the parking and increased the amount of bedrooms. Try to take care of the problems that the neighbors are having over there. As far as the garbage cans, you know, I know it's a city code ordinance or an ordinance for the dumpsters, and they're not my properties. So that's all I got to say about it.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak to the council? Very good. Council, questions or comments or motions? Councilor Jameson.
If we could have Mike Cooper come back and help us a little bit. Mike, the pictures that we saw there with the neighbors, with the empty driveways, where are those homes compared to this picture?
Those are to the north or to the top. So they would be to the north of this proposed development, directly to the north. Those are existing fourplexes. with the
When they
three
showed
bed-
their own homes, where are those?
They're on the west side. This photo is a little bit out of date,
Oh,
but
okay,
yep,
okay,
right
that's-
through there, right
okay.
across the street.
So if those two homes that are across the street would just be continued north?
Correct. And then again, to the south of the property that we're considering tonight will be twin homes.
So those will stay twin homes?
Yes.
But the ones outlined would move to the,
Request is for those to be the fourplexes.
Councilor Ruffing.
For the association, could you answer a question for me? Sure. Come up, please. Are the fourplexes or anything on the east side of the road there in your association at this point?
No.
So the street is the drawing line, everything to the west of the street is in the association, and everything on the east side of the street is not in the association?
Yes.
Even though the twin homes are going to be built on the south side, and those are twin homes to the north there too, or are they fourplexes to the north?
On the east side of the street, that's townhomes.
Townhomes,
On the west side of the street, it's all twin homes.
twin homes, okay, townhomes, okay,
Everybody on the west side of the street is part of the association.
okay.
Well, you can see the first house on the west side is a rental owned by the builder.
It was the model, I suppose, or something like that.
Well, it's a split foyer is what it is. These are all ranches,
Okay,
but that's a rental. And they are not part of our association, but the builder is.
okay.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Brown.
Dale, I have a couple questions. In your association, have there been any recent sales?
We've had two dropped. We've got one pending. We had a renter that was renting one of the twin homes that made an offer to the builder, and he took so long to get back to her because he's in St. Louis. She finally went somewhere else.
Do you know what the offer was?
I have no idea.
Do you know what the asking price was?
$170,000 with an unfinished basement.
And has Minnehaha County lowered the valuations?
Pardon me?
Has the county lowered the valuations on the properties?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
We're just going on what the realtor's telling us.
And who is the builder, if I might?
Beckman Construction.
Okay.
Kerry Shaw.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.
If we could go back to the city's picture there that shows the development on Louise and on about the middle of the block there.
Dale, thank you.
No, Dale.
You want Dale?
Yes,
Okay,
I do.
okay.
There's that little service road that feeds traffic out of that business development there.
Yes.
How has that affected the traffic and everything on your road?
Hardly
Has that
anybody
been
uses it.
Nobody uses
A few
it?
people that live in those townhomes use it. We don't. And that's also a service alley. You can see behind it, it's a service alley for the business places along Louise. That whole area now is built up. There's all buildings on Louise, and there's buildings all the way down the west side Whiskey Avenue except for one lot. That's empty. That's all buildings now.
So basically, the houses just to the east of there is, or the west of there is the buffer between you and Louise Avenue then?
Right, and you're right.
Okay. All right, thank you, Dale.
You're welcome.
Councilor Henneman.
Mike, I have a question for you, please. You stated that, or it was stated that these are going to be townhomes with 2 bedrooms, and that's the way they have to be built, correct?
Yes.
I mean, they can't just arbitrarily go in and do 3 bedrooms now, right?
Yep. In fact, you could put a stipulation on that tonight if you wanted to,
Okay,
since it is a conditional use.
okay. The other thing is, you stated that the property to the south there
was twin homes.
Will be twin homes. It's still vacant.
Positive they're going to be twin homes, and they won't come and ask to be able to build.
Yes, we would not support if it did come forward, but yes. That's the understanding of everybody, that that will be twin homes.
It's the understanding, though, that you said that they're not going to come and ask for fourplexes.
Yeah, that's based on previous public hearings that we've had, and it's a different property owner.
Okay.
Councilor Anderson Jr.
Mike, if you're not going to support twin homes there, and you have twin homes to the north of this proposed development, why are we putting fourplexes in the middle of a bunch of twin homes?
Yeah, when we had, again, we had previous public hearings on this item, and it was primarily based on the type of office retail that was along Louise Avenue. And so as we got closer to 77th Street, across 77th Street to the south is, again, I don't know if we can scroll down there, but that was kind of, again, the transition area to get more in line with what's on the south side of 77th Street. Okay. So we were trying to, again, solve this whole thing of transitions that we talk about with you all the time.
Okay, thank you.
Council, would anybody want to make a motion?
Move to approve the conditional use permit with the stipulation they be 2-bedroom units.
Second, Karski.
Councilor Brown has made a motion. It was seconded by Councilor Karski. Is there any further discussion on this item? Councilor Rolfing.
I don't buy the I don't buy this transition thing. I think the transition is to twin homes there, and the transition stopped at 77th Street and started south of 77th Street. So I guess I would urge a no vote on this one.
Hearing no further discussion, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
No.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
No.
Brown?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
That is passed 6-2. Item 45.
Item 45 is a special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Sanford Health to be operated at the Sanford Center, 2301 East 60th Street North, for the Chamber Mixer to be held on May 15th, 2012. Item 46 is a special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Almost Home Canine Rescue to be operated at the 8th and Railroad Parking Lot, 401 East 8th Street, for the 605 Summer Classic to be held on June 22nd to 23rd, 2012. And item 47 is a special one-day wine license for Senior Citizen Services Incorporated to be held at Active Generations, 2300 West 46th Street, for a fundraising concert on May 10th, 2012.
Welcome.
Mr. Mayor, I need to recuse myself.
Councilor Inman, thank you. Please.
Jamie Palmer, Licensing Specialist. I'm here to speak to items 45 through 47, and I'd be happy to take any questions you have. And Lori is here to assist me with any questions.
Thank you, Jamie. Council, any questions or comments of Jamie? Very good. Would anybody like to make a motion? Councilor Aguilar.
I move approval of items 45 through 47.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Aguilar has made a motion to approve these items, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. If there is no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 7-0. Item 48.
Item 48 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at West 77th Street and South Beale Avenue from the AG Agricultural District to the RS2 and RD Residential Districts, petition number 2012-0312, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a petition submitted by Don Runge to allow this property to be developed into residential uses. The City Council approved the annexation of this, and now the property is being requested to be rezoned from agricultural to residential. This is generally, in terms of the location, just to the north and west of the Harrisburg Explorer Elementary School. The site is approximately 18 acres in size. And the request is to change this into 2 different residential zoning districts. On the west side would be approximately 7 acres of RD residential, which, as we heard prior to tonight during the appeal, RD zoning allows single-family and twin homes without any further public review, and fourplexes would require a public hearing by conditional use. The rest of the property, which is approximately 11 acres, is zoned RS2, proposed to be zoned RS2. And in that case, single family is allowed as a permitted use. Twin homes would be allowed through a conditional use permit approval process. This is an area that does have services available in terms of utilities and street improvements. It's been reviewed by staff, and the Planning Commission has made a recommendation to make these zoning changes.
Ms. Cooper,
We did
thank
not
you.
receive any neighborhood concerns on this one.
Thank you. Folks, this is a second reading, so if anybody wants to address the council on this topic, you certainly can. Very good. Council, any questions, comments, motions?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second, Entenmann.
Councilor Rolfing's made a motion to approve item number 48, seconded by Councilor Entenmann. If there is no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Entenmann,
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Thank you. That has passed 8-0. Item 49.
Item 49 is the second reading and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, a major amendment petition number 2012-0318 to Chapter 15.45.070, Plan Development Districts at the southwest corner of East 57th Street and South Sycamore Avenue, amending the Village at Sycamore and 57th Street Plan Development District regulations. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Ms. Cooper.
This is a petition submitted by Joel Dykstra on behalf of the Robert Broyne Living Trust, owners of the property. This is in the southwest corner of 57th and Sycamore and consists of approximately 37 acres of land area. There's some history with this property that back in 2008, the City Council approved a zoning concept for a mixed-use village consisting of a variety of commercial, office, and residential uses. The current property owner and developers are now looking at going back towards the more traditional zoning configuration because they believe that that would better serve the market for future development in this area. So in this case, you'll see that we're changing commercial to approximately 23 acres of land area, and 14 acres will be multifamily residential. So it doesn't significantly change the previous land area in terms of zoning uses, but again, it's more that traditional configuration of commercial frontage along the major arterial streets and then multifamily residential abutting that. And I believe that the applicant is here tonight as well if you have any questions.
Thanks, Mike. Another second reading. Would anybody be interested in engaging the council on this topic? Very good. Council?
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Karski.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve item number 49. It was seconded by Councilor Karski. If there is no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Jamison,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Entenmann,
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Thank you. That has passed 8-0. Item 50.
Item 50 is the second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at the northeast corner of the intersection at South Cliff Avenue and East 69th Street from the O Office District to the C4 Planned Commercial District, petition number 2012-0204, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Thank you. Ms. Cooper?
This one we might get some public testimony. We'll see.
Expecting it. Thanks for the levity, Mr.
Okay.
Cooper. Thank you.
For this particular item, joining me tonight in terms of city staff and our team, in addition to Steve Randall, we have Jeff Schmidt representing the planning office. Jeff has been kind of our lead person in addressing questions from city councilors, talking to some of the public as well as the media about this proposed development. From Public Works, we have our team represented by Mark Cotter. Heath Hoftieser is here to answer questions about the traffic impact study. And Andy Berg is here to answer any questions that you might have about the proposed drainage improvements. Those are the primary areas of questions that we've been getting since the Planning Commission hearing on this item. So here we go. This is a petition submitted by Walmart Stores Incorporated to modify the zoning of 2 parcels of land in the northeast corner of East 69th Street and South Cliff Avenue. We're talking about 2 parcels of land that consist of just under 3 acres in total area. In the northwest is a 1 acre, just over a 1 acre parcel that's currently zoned office. And then on the east side is about a 2.6 acre parcel that's currently zoned office. So this is what you are being asked to consider tonight is the potential rezoning of the 2 parcels of land that are shown in blue. In between those, we have existing commercial zoning. So again, this shows you on the left side the current zoning, and then on the right side the proposed zoning, which would be to change the 1 acre of office into commercial for parking, and the just over 2.6 acre office area into recreation conservation for a proposed stormwater detention area. So tonight, this is really a land use item that you're considering. In terms of approving a development plan, that will not be the outcome of tonight's council hearing. You are not approving a development plan tonight. With our zoning ordinance, we have the zoning, which establishes the land uses. And then we have, for this particular size of a commercial area, a conditional use permit requirement. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as I go through my presentation. The conditional use permit is where we would deal with the development plan approval. So I'll repeat that at least 2 more times before I'm done tonight, that what you are being asked to consider tonight is a land use question of these 2 parcels. The next slide gives you a little background because I know people are interested in how did we get to this point. Back in 2006, we received a petition by a developer landowner to change the proposed land use of this northeast corner of Cliff Avenue and 69th Street. At that time, our 2015 comprehensive plan showed this future land use as multifamily residential. And we were approached by a developer interested in changing this to commercial. So the City Council approved a land use amendment to the comprehensive plan in 2006 from multifamily to commercial. Also in 2006, there was a rezoning petition submitted for this particular area. And that resulted in the 1 acre of office, the approximately 17 acres of commercial, and then the additional just over 2 acres of office on the east side. At that time, the proposed land use was going to be some type of retail commercial, but nothing specific was being proposed at that time. The developer just wanted to get the zoning in place so that they could begin to market the property. And then later on in 2010, we received a conditional use permit request specifically for a Hy-Vee store on this corner. The Hy-Vee store was going to be built within the confines of the existing commercial zoning. And it showed the store, the parking, the access points off Cliff Avenue and 69th Street, as well as a proposed gas facility on the very corner of the site. That conditional use permit was approved in 2010. And it also included Hy-Vee allowance to have an alcohol license because of the proximity to Sioux Falls Christian School. That was also part of the conditional use approval at that time. And as everybody knows, Hy-Vee decided not to build here. They purchased the Sunshine store at 57th and Cliff and converted that into the Hy-Vee store. So now we're back to today with a proposal from Walmart to move forward with a conditional use permit action on this corner. But prior to doing that, they wanted to bring in a change to these two parcels so that the zoning would match the proposed land uses. And again, the 1 acre parcel is being proposed for parking, and the 2.65 acre parcel is being proposed for stormwater detention. Under the current zoning, the stormwater detention could go in office. And the other smaller office parcel can be used for access, but it could only be used for parking in conjunction with an office building. So again, the intent tonight is to look at the land use changes that Walmart is asking by changing the zoning on those two parcels, which total less than 3 acres in size. Now, that's where we would typically end the discussion as far as the zoning and land use. But we know that because of the interest in this property and the type of development that's being proposed, that a lot of the questions that we've been getting from counselors, the public, the media, is really more of what we would look at during the conditional use permit review process. So what I want to quickly go through tonight is the type of information that we would review, and that we've already had preliminary discussions with Walmart about the site development, the development plan versus the land use and zoning. They had submitted to us a proposed development plan that shows the building footprint, landscaping. We would look at a very detailed landscaping plan, lighting plan with photometrics, so that we'll be able to know exactly what the light intensity will be along the property lines, as well as within the parking lot. And then obviously the drainage is a big issue. Our preliminary discussions with Walmart on their proposed drainage plans is that by constructing this drainage facility on the east side, they will exceed our minimum requirements. The holding capacity of that detention area will probably almost double what the minimum requirements would be for this area. And so the idea would be that this would capture the flow of water across the parking lot, from the roof of the building, from the driveways. All of that would flow into the detention area. It would be held, and it would be discharged into the storm sewer system at a rate that would not cause flooding or other drainage problems downstream. It's also being designed so that it would be, so that we would limit the chance of it overflowing onto the streets or onto the adjoining wetland conservation area directly to the east. So with this storm drainage plan that we would review and approve as part of the conditional use permit process, the intent is to improve drainage in the neighborhood, because we know that right now we have concerns by other landowners in the area, including Sioux Falls Christian. So a lot of effort has gone into the stormwater and drainage plans, but there's more detail yet to come with the conditional use, as well as the landscaping, the screening, and the lighting. We would also look at the building elevation. What kind of materials are they going to use? Is it going to be brick, stone, other types of materials, the colors, the signage on the building, the signage on the property? Again, that has to comply with our city requirements, but it's also something that we review more intensely as part of the conditional use permit process. The applicant, again, has been very open of wanting to work with the city and the neighborhood to try to accommodate what we believe would be a good look, a good development for this particular area. The next one is probably the big one that we've heard the most about, which is the traffic impact. Again, for this size of commercial development, we would typically ask the applicant or the developer to conduct a traffic impact study. And in fact, we had one done for the Hy-Vee store. In this case, Walmart has hired a private consulting engineer to do a traffic impact study that has been reviewed by our city staff. And that tells us a number of things. It tells us what the projected traffic flow is going to be through this intersection of 69th and Cliff. It tells us where the trucks are going to come in and leave, as well as the customer parking. And really it tells us, based on overall development, not only of the proposed Walmart, but of the entire intersection, what type of street improvements should be programmed to accommodate both existing as well as projected traffic through the year 2035. With our long-range transportation plan and the modeling that we do, we're looking 25 years out into the future. So Walmart has hired a consulting firm to do this. And again, Heath is here tonight to give you more of a summary of the findings and the improvements that would be recommended for this particular development. And as we've talked about this traffic impact, in the past we've done it where we've allowed commercial businesses to construct their building, they get an occupancy permit, we'll come along within a year, 2 or 3 or longer and make improvements to the transportation system. That might be done because of budgeting or other logistical reasons. But as we've talked to Walmart, as we've talked to the public, and as we're talking to you, Councilor, tonight, at least the city staff and the applicant believe that it's probably in the best interest, in this case, to have the traffic improvements done in conjunction with the occupancy of the property of the store, so that we don't end up having to come back later or starting occupancy of this commercial business without adequate transportation system. So again, through the conditional use permit process, we would bring a proposal with the city staff and with the applicant on 2 or 3 different options. One option would be to program city funds in conjunction with the store opening, which right now we had heard was proposed to be 2013. Another option would be to have the opening of the store delayed until we could program the street improvements. Right now, we have a project scheduled for this year to make improvements to Cliff Avenue through that 57th Street intersection, going north to about 54th Street, and then going south to about Jane Lane. But with this traffic impact study and the ultimate build-out, we know that there should be additional driving lanes as well as turning lanes to accommodate that ultimate projected traffic flow. So programming city funds, right now, the Cliff Avenue improvements going south of Jane down towards 85th Street in our capital budget, which would be a development-driven project, is probably in that 2015-2016 timeline. So if we said Walmart, the earliest that we could fund these improvements would be 2015, 2016, would you agree to delay the opening of the store until then? That's another option. The third option would be to put together a development agreement, which would be a public-private partnership. And this is done all over the country. We haven't done it so much in Sioux Falls, but we have done it on a limited basis, whereby the developer could provide funding to do the project at their preferred timeline. And then there would be an agreement with the city that a portion of it would be reimbursed based on that development agreement. With this proposed acreage of this store that's being considered, Walmart will pay about $250,000 in platting fees that goes into our arterial street construction fund. But as I said, right now we don't have the improvements for this intersection budgeted within our capital program. Mark and his team have estimated that, and he can speak to this more eloquently than I can, but we're estimating to do the engineering and to do the build-out is going to be just over $4 million project. So again, a lot of discussion about the traffic improvements, and I'm trying to reinforce this conditional use permit process that we would bring forth recommendations as to how we sync the street improvements with the occupancy of the proposed development. We have another chart that we used at first reading to show a comparison because there's a lot of questions about the size of the building, the number of parking spaces. So we try to do a comparison of what was approved back in 2010 with what's being proposed in 2012 in terms of building size and parking. And the total potential building in 2010, including the office zoning areas, was just over 160,000 square feet with about 644 parking spaces. By changing the zoning to that 2.6 acres of office, as well as the 1 acre of office, the projected building square footage now would be just under 153,000 with about just over 600 parking spaces being provided. And again, tonight we're not approving the development plan, but this is based on the preliminary information that we've looked at up to this point. Another question was the alcohol license. Again, through our zoning ordinance, if a alcohol license is requested within 500 feet of a school, it has to be approved by a conditional use permit. And based on our preliminary review of what's been proposed, it's measured from the corner of the commercial building, the nearest corner, to the nearest property line of the school. And based again on the preliminary development plan that we've seen so far, that distance is about 570 feet. But since we don't know for sure if this is the final development plan, that's the best information that we can provide to you tonight. But we would place we would place it on the owner of the property to either include this as part of the conditional use permit or to assure the city that it would not be within 500 feet. Okay, then the next slide that we looked at is this in conformance with the city's comprehensive plan? Why would we allow this much commercial development in this particular area? And as I tried to start out with the history of this, the zoning, the commercial zoning in the northeast corner of this area was established back in 2006. And it was also done after we amended our comprehensive plan. This shows the zoning in the 4 quadrants. You can see that on the west side is multifamily residential. On the southwest corner is commercial and multifamily. And then in the southeast is commercial and institutional. And then the next slide shows land use. And what this shows that we, in this particular area within this corner of 2 arterial streets, 69th and Cliff, we have the potential for about 60 acres of what we call employment or non-residential development. And that would be the USF, office, institutional development. That adds up to about 60 acres. And of that, there's about 27 acres of commercial. And then to the north, you have the existing multifamily. To the east is the wetland conservation area, as well as a future park site. And then you can see farther to the southeast is the institutional, which is Sioux Falls Christian. And then to the west of Cliff Avenue, it transitions, there's that word again, transitions from multifamily to single-family residential. Jeff Schmidt put together the next slide because we've been getting asked, how does this intersection compare to other existing or other commercial development areas? So the Meadows on the River is about 200 acres. Dolly Farm, 100. 69th and Louise is 74 acres. And this is commercial zoning. 26th and Marion is 73 acres. Again, 69th and Cliff, that intersection totals 27 acres of commercial. 26th and Sycamore is 27 acres. 57th and Cliff is 13. And 69th and Minnesota is 8. So the last slide that I have, whoops, I guess we have two more. This shows a comparison of the 26th and Sycamore zoning. And it's the same amount of commercial zoning as what's in the 69th and Cliff Avenue intersection. And I think I mentioned this at first reading, but we did have, when the Hy-Vee store went in on the northwest corner and the Lewis Drug Store went in on the southwest corner, we did hear a lot of concerns by the adjoining residential property owners. They were concerned about everything from traffic to lights to trash and noise and property values. And so again, through the conditional use process, we tried to address those as best we could. And those commercial uses have been there for some time. So we have history of listening to neighborhoods' concerns and trying to address those with development through the conditional use permit process. So this is my final slide, and I'll just say it one more time, that what you are being asked to consider tonight is a land use decision and not an approval of a development plan. On the left side is the existing zoning. The two office parcels are what is being considered for change tonight. And what Walmart is asking is to change the 1 acre office to the land use of parking and to change the 2.6 acre office to the land use of stormwater detention. I'll stop there, and again, Mayor, we have a number of staff here if you have more specific questions, but I know lots of other people are going to want to talk tonight.
Mr. Cooper, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Folks, this is a second reading, so you do have an opportunity to engage the council on this topic. I'm not going to go through everything that I started the meeting with. I'm just going to read just a very, very brief piece of it. And that, again, tonight, I have been asked as the facilitators of this meeting and as the mayor of this town by the leadership of the city council to allow 40 to 45 minutes of public input. There will be 20 minutes provided for those who oppose the plan, and then 20 minutes provided for those who are in favor of the plan. Individual input is limited to 5 minutes apiece. Again, and I appreciate the way you folks have done this, we'd ask you to get ready so that we maximize the use of that 20 to 25 minutes of time per side. With that in mind, I'd like to welcome all of you, and as you come forward, just state your name for the council and introduce yourself to the people of Sioux Falls. Welcome.
Rex Pruitt. I live at 6204 South Tomar Road. I am an independent researcher of this issue because I live in the Diamond Valley neighborhood, and I conferred with some of my neighbors, some who are with me here tonight, and I'm speaking on behalf of the area that goes from 69th and Tomar south to 73rd Street and over to Cliff Avenue. There are only 2 entrances into that neighborhood. I'm going to read verbatim so I can get through this so that in respect for the others. In my research, I found the 2006 Joint Zoning Regulations for Lincoln County and the City of Sioux Falls. It was adopted by resolution that the Lincoln County Commission convened in a special joint session with the City of Sioux Falls, or City Council, on January 23, 2006. After further inquiry of Lincoln County officials and a private attorney, there is reason for concern regarding the context of this agreement and its relevance in this circumstance. Even though this property is within Sioux Falls municipality and is not legally subject to these joint zoning regulations, an exception is in order due to the close proximity to the Lincoln County Planning Authority area. Specifically, the lines of transitioned authority are only 1,000 feet south on Cliff Avenue and only 500 feet south of the east boundary of the property being subjected to rezoning or a buffer zone. As attested to in the City Planning Commission meeting on April 4th, 2012, Jim Schmidt and Dale Long clearly articulated the concerns regarding water drainage and traffic issues that will have a direct impact to the Lincoln County residents and appointed representatives. The response thus far demonstrates that the City of Sioux Falls is being an unfriendly and inconsiderate neighbor to Lincoln County concerns. Why is there such a push by the City of Sioux Falls to accommodate Walmart's application for rezoning of the corner of Northeast 69th and Cliff Avenue? Wouldn't it make more sense to listen to the voice of your voting constituents, of whose lives and property values will be impacted? What is the motivating force behind accommodation? The SHAPE Sioux Falls 2035 Comprehensive Plan, is that it? Or is it the Jerry Maguire quote, "Show me the money"? Well, to quote the SHAPE Sioux Falls 2035 Comprehensive Plan, Section 3, Shape Neighborhoods, subheading, pages 40 to 47, map 3.A, page 47, future land use identifies the intersection at 69th and Cliff Avenue as a neighborhood employment center. According to Exhibit 3.A, future land use tables, the future land use objective states that a neighborhood employment center is typically located at the intersection of two minor arterial roadways. A neighborhood employment center serves the immediate neighborhoods adjacent to the intersection, providing typically convenience items such as gas, food, and personal services. Pedestrian links into these areas are encouraged to allow the neighborhoods to access the services without a car. These are spaced a mile apart and serve a market area within the residential density of that particular neighborhood, approximately 5,000 people at 3.5 units per acre. The future land use criteria is on 15 to 60 acres and no more than 50% commercial, which has been confirmed. According to this same table, in order to support the rezoning to a commercial 4, which it is not rezoned to that as yet, as it depicted in the picture on the screen, the area would need to be considered a sub-regional employment center. A sub-regional center is a commerce center with a draw from outside the community. The commerce center is typically an intersection of a regional arterial, interstate, principal roadway, and or a major arterial roadway. It serves a more limited trade area for employment and shopping, so therefore is more spatially located. It is spaced approximately 4 to 6 miles apart and serves a market of 40 to 100,000 people. Clearly, the rezoning to C4 was and is not the intent for intersection of 69th and Cliff Avenue according to the 2035 plan. Additionally, this far-reaching impact located so closely to Lincoln County authority justifies the implications to the areas outside the jurisdictions of municipality. What is the return on investment that Walmart has presented to the City of Sioux Falls for economic development and impact? According to my research, the Global Insight study on the economic impact of Walmart, page 19, it states, Walmart's presence in the economy does not affect the composition of tax receipts. Federal and state and local tax receipts as a share of GDP were the same in the economies with and without Walmart. Therefore, if economic impact is not significant and rezoning to C4 does not fit the 2035 plan, what is the motivation for placing Walmart at the location of 69th and Cliff? This brings into question the ethics that may be driving the political arraignment. I am confident that this council has the utmost in ethical standards. Unfortunately, the Wall Street Journal and New York Times published articles on Saturday and Monday, respectively, exposing the unethical offerings of bribes by Walmart in order to influence zoning decisions. These implications raise concerns about why a large corporate giant needs exceptions when proper areas exist.
Rex, thank you very much. You're at 6 minutes. Thank you.
Is that 6? All right. Sorry.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name's Dave Hewitt. My home is at 5813 Tomar Road. On behalf of many of us, thank you for listening to us over the past few weeks. We appreciate that. I will start, first of all, by saying since Mr. Cooper brought up the conditional use permitting area, ideally, we would like to have about 15 additional minutes in testimony because a lot of those items that he brought up are in fact in dispute with respect to pollution, with respect to drainage, with respect to traffic, and what that looks like. That said, please know that we understand this is just about rezoning these two parcels of land, and that's what we will address. We would appreciate it, though, that we not expand that debate, whether it's the city or Walmart, in terms of getting into conditional use permitting kinds of issues. That said, let's talk about the 2035 plan. From the start, we've been puzzled as to why Walmart wants to insist on this being a neighborhood employment center. The previous speaker read that definition, and according to the 2035 plan, the only way adjacent apartments can be acceptable buffers to neighborhoods if in fact if the super Walmart is a neighborhood employment center. If it's a regional or sub-regional employment center, that's when you need an office. And if you look at the proposal here, the problem you have with that little square up there is that it's right across the street from some single-family residences. And in this, if we're going to respect the buffering proposal or the buffering plan that the city has laid out, that needs to be zoned office, and it needs to remain zoned office. With respect to the other 2.4 acres, why should that be rezoned? Well, to recreation and conservation. They say, well, we're putting a retention pond back there, but what it really is a tax break for Walmart. We're talking difference between $300 if it's rezoned and $28,000 if it remains office. So again, tax break for Walmart. Now, if you buy the fact that in fact this super Walmart is a neighborhood employment center, then in fact you can do this. But in fact, if you don't, if you can't look yourself in the mirror and decide, nah, this really isn't, then you have to leave it as is to respect the buffering for those individuals that are located across the street. Interestingly, my wife went on the Walmart, let's talk about the motives of Walmart here, went on and looked at different models that Walmart offers. They have a model called the Walmart Neighborhood Markets, 42,000 square feet, and probably more like what we're talking about in terms of neighborhood, not 155,000 square feet. There are other issues that we have out there. Traffic, some will address. The environment that you need, at some point you need to say, we need to stop this and just take a deep breath and consider where that water is going. Mr. Cooper says the retention water is going into the storm sewer. Well, after the storm sewer, right across the street, it goes into a wetland. And we all know that we don't like a lot of rainwater that has just come off a Walmart or any kind of parking lot into a wetland. So, having said that, we would urge you to reject the arguments and, in fact, vote against this rezoning. If you want to treat Walmart like Hy-Vee, you need to reject the request because it's an identical situation. You need to not proceed any further until some kind of comprehensive environmental impact statement is performed. And for those reasons, I hope you will reject this proposal. Thank you.
David, thank you. Folks, I hate to do this, but one thing that the City Council also wants to make sure that you're aware of is the clapping and the cheering and the things like that. It's just not appropriate for this venue. Thank you, though. Please, welcome.
Jay Waldstra, Superintendent, Sioux Falls Christian Schools, and just want to thank you guys for the work you do. It's been good to get to know you over the last 3 weeks. I'm going to read my report tonight just so I can save time for the other speakers, but I'm going to talk tonight on the area of traffic, and Mr. Cooper already talked about traffic to a great degree. so we know it is a concern. My first concern is that of safety. As a school administrator, one of our #1 goals is the safety of our students and parents. With nearly 1,000 students on our campus and no busing, we generate a large amount of traffic to this area of the city several times per day. With AM and PM drop-offs and pickups, along with extracurricular events happening almost daily, we experience traffic congestion on a frequent basis with nothing currently built in the corner of 69th and Cliff. We also have an inexperienced driver factor, with many 14-year-old kids behind the wheel of an automobile on a daily basis. Clearly, with the increased traffic comes increased accidents. Even under current conditions, during the AM and PM arrival and dismissal times, it's a real challenge to see how emergency vehicles, fire trucks, ambulance, etc., could get in and out of our parking lot on any given day. And as I've looked at the traffic study, I've yet to see any contingency plan put forth by the traffic study or the city to address that concern. According to the traffic study done by HDR, the total trips generated by development such as this would add 1,022 trips during the PM peak hours between 5 and 6 p.m. This is the same time of day that many of our sports and fine arts practices are getting out and puts many more teenagers in the traffic flow. I have a real concern for the safety of our students, parents, and the general public who are traveling these streets. Second item of concern is the level of service that the city is accepting at the 8 intersections that were studied as part of the traffic study. As part of the report in Section 4, it states that a level of service of a C rating has generally been established by the standard for planning of transportation facilities for peak hour traffic conditions. However, a level service of D is often accepted in urbanized areas where the cost or impacts to provide a C is prohibitive. For this study, a level of service of a D was used for the overall intersection was used as a minimum standard at arterial intersections. What would the fact that a rating of D had to be used in this situation instead of a C cause you to think this location is not the best fit for the business of this nature in that neighborhood? After the Walmart is built, the intersection of Jane Lane drops from a C in the AM and a D in the PM to an E in the AM and an F in the PM. If C is a standard and D is acceptable, then how can we even be considering an E or an F at any intersection in this area? According to the information provided in Table 2 of this section, the traffic study rating of an E states maximum capacity, extended delays, volume at or near capacity. The rating of an F states forced flow, excessive delays, represents jam conditions. The intersection operates below capacity with low volumes. In the field of education, an E or an F is not acceptable. When we get kids getting E's and F's, we make them redo their work. We make them to go back. I would ask the city to do the same. Final item I'd like to address is the overall capacity of the streets and intersections in this area of Sioux Falls to handle this type of traffic count. I personally live and work in this neighborhood and can tell you that Cliff Avenue is difficult to travel as it exists today. It is difficult to enter traffic from many of the side streets depending on the time of day. During the peak hours that were looked at for the traffic study, it is especially difficult. The customer and truck traffic that would be coming from Interstate 29 and 229 for deliveries, etc., would have to take Cliff Avenue or 69th Street to get to and from the Walmart store. It does not appear that the current street and intersection configuration can handle the type of capacity needed for this development or for the 2035 study needs. I would ask the city to further study the impact of this development as it relates to other neighborhoods in the 5-mile radius of the Walmart store. I want to thank you for your time and ask that you would deny the rezoning proposal.
Principal Jay, thank you very much. Welcome.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, my name is Dan Harmelank. I'm a lawyer at Woods Fuller Schultz & Smith here in town. I'm a parent of 3 young children who attend Sioux Falls Christian, and this year I'm also having the privilege of serving as president of the Sioux Falls Christian School Board. Our superintendent, Jay Woudstra, just talked about some of the primary concerns that we have as a school regarding the proposed rezoning of this property, really to accommodate the construction of a 150,000 square foot big box store almost across the street from the school. I won't restate those concerns, but I just want you to know that I'm here to talk on behalf of hundreds of other parents of children at Sioux Falls Christian who feel those concerns very much the same way that I do, many of whom are here tonight showing their support, and we appreciate that. You know, I think the fact that we have those concerned parents is an important thing to consider here, because that makes this situation different. Mr. Cooper referred to the Lewis store and the other Hy-Vee store as situations where there were neighbors that were upset about this. There were homeowners in the neighborhood that didn't like it. Here we have that, but we also have a school where 1,000 students from the ages of probably 4 until 18 are attending school 5 days a week. And I think that puts this situation in a very different light, the land use in a very different light because of that school that we have there. You know, basically we were talking about the council being asked to approve Walmart's request to rezone property to allow it to build this big facility so nearby to a school. I don't think that is good for the city of Sioux Falls. I don't think that's what the city of Sioux Falls stands for, and I know it's not good for our children. One other comment I'd like to make, and that relates to the comparison to Hy-Vee. We've heard a lot about the Hy-Vee already tonight, the Hy-Vee that was previously proposed for this piece of property. And with that, I think, comes the implication, well, if the Hy-Vee would have been okay there, well, then certainly the Walmart has to be okay there as well. And along with that, the thought, well, how can the city council not approve what Walmart is asking if the Hy-Vee was approved? Well, I think the fact that we are here tonight before you with this rezoning issue is the answer to that. They are different. They're materially different developments that are proposed for this property. A 100,000 square foot store as opposed to a 150,000 square foot store. That is a very, very significant difference. And because of that difference, Walmart is asking for this rezoning change. If Walmart was building a store similar to the much smaller Hy-Vee that had been proposed, we wouldn't be here. End of story. We wouldn't be having this discussion tonight. But Walmart's not proposing to do what Hy-Vee was proposing. Walmart is asking the city to change the zoning designation of certain buffer areas that Mr. Hewitt talked about. Establish buffer areas to make sure that this use is compatible with the remainder of the existing land uses already existing in the area. This was done consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. Hy-Vee would have been required to live within these requirements. We're asking that Walmart also be required to live within these established zoning requirements and not be given a special exception or granted a change to do something more than what was approved for the use of this property. One closing remark. As I've been on the school board over this last few months, in particular, of course, with this issue, I've had so many people come up to me and say, there's no way that the city of Sioux Falls would allow a large Walmart or a Target or something like that to be built that close to a school, would they? My wife and I have lived in Sioux Falls for 12 years. We're very proud of Sioux Falls. We're very proud to be residents of Sioux Falls. And I would like to proudly answer those people that have made those comments to me that no, our city would not allow that to happen. And with that, I ask you to deny the zoning request.
Dan, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Folks, we're now past the time. I'm going to allow one more speaker, and then if there's time, after those in favor, then I'll bring others back. Welcome. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Tamby White, and I represent Saving Our Neighborhoods and the over 1,600 petition signatures that are against this rezoning proposal. My main focus tonight is to talk about the 2.66 acre office zoning that is being requested by the applicant to change to recreation conservation through a detention pond. It is also to my understanding that under the current zoning of office, a detention pond can still be built. We are all well aware of the nearly 7 acres of wetlands and nearly 30 acres of wildlife that sit adjacent to this proposed Walmart. What some of you might not be aware of is what sits south of the proposed Walmart. we have yet another jurisdictional mitigated protected wetlands and also a jurisdictional protected headwaters of Spring Creek. It is to my understanding that your proposed detention pond will drain into this stormwater system. What was not mentioned is where the stormwater goes, and well, right into the wetlands and the headwaters of Spring Creek. Well, where does the headwaters of Spring Creek go? Right down to Schindler. We all know what happened to Schindler in 2010, along with Spring Creek Golf Course, and the many other people that suffered through this massive flooding. It is also to my understanding that this proposed detention pond will help with the drainage problems we have in this area. Walmart reports that they'll have lowered the flow rates or the amount of time it takes for the water to fill Spring Creek. What was not mentioned is the volume of water being shed off the nearly 20 acres of impervious surfaces. The point I'm making here is no matter how low you adjust the water flow rate, the volume released downstream increases dramatically. The volume of water being shed off of these impervious surfaces has a substantial negative impact on the flooding concerns, not only for the school, but also Schindler. This increased volume of watershed will also contain the pollutants, such as the oil and salt from the parking lot, that will be dumped right into the protected waters of Spring Creek and the wetlands. An environmental impact analysis, I cannot stress this enough, of Spring Creek and the wetlands needs to be done. And I believe it would be irresponsible not to. Anyone who has done any research on the proposed Walmart stores will come across a common theme. An action plan that exists is not always followed through. Walmart is the first national company that the federal government has taken an enforcement action against for violating stormwater regulations and requirements under the Clean Water Act. These violations occurred within our very own city of Sioux Falls with the West Side Walmart expansion. Pollutants were illegally being discharged in our very own Big Sioux River, which is a water of the United States. Walmart paid their fine and moved on, and our city had to deal with the damage. What's even more disturbing is after the settlement, follow-up inspections revealed that the violations continued, and I asked myself, is this responsible planning? In conclusion, Walmart is by far not the victim here. Hy-Vee didn't ask you to remove critical buffers. Hy-Vee didn't ask you to rezone office to RC to avoid paying over $20,000 in yearly property taxes. The current zoning needs to be held at the same standard as it was for Hy-Vee. I don't care who comes in here, take the name off Walmart, it still needs to be held to the same standard. I ask you, City Council, Mr. Mayor, to demand an environmental impact analysis and to not proceed forward until one is completed. Thank you for your time.
Tammy, good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we'll provide some time for those who are in support of this effort. If you just come forward, please state your name. Same thing applies. We're trying to limit it to 20 minutes. That group was at about 25. Again, same thing will apply. Have a good time. Good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I am Matt Gasser, Executive Director of Feeding South Dakota, and I feel fortunate to be the first one to speak here because I'm going to be the kind of transition person, using that term again. You know, I'm not here as a proponent or opponent to this issue, but rather simply to share with you Walmart's commitment to our community and how that has helped our organization throughout the years. As a private nonprofit, Feeding South Dakota depends on many individuals and private partnerships to accomplish our mission of eliminating hunger in South Dakota. We cannot begin to we cannot begin to address this challenge if it were not for the many relationships that we have established. There are few partnerships in South Dakota that make an impact on the fight against hunger like that of the Walmart Corporation. From their corporate office down to each of the store-level associates, Walmart has established a culture of caring and commitment to sharing their valuable resources of funds, product, and most valuable, people. Here's a sample of what they have done for both Feeding South Dakota and those that we serve. The Walmart Foundation itself has provided us with a 2009 24-foot refrigerated truck that we were able to use to transport safely food donations. In addition to many other grants, as a corporation, I think a little known fact that Walmart as a foundation has made a 5-year commitment of $2 billion to the fight against hunger in the United States. Since 2009, the South Dakota Walmart stores themselves have provided Feeding South Dakota with straight-level grants for $25,000 to help with our backpack programs, $30,000 to purchase a used refrigerated truck for our new site in Pierre, store-level grants of $8,000 for our food pantries and our food bank. And in 2011, as part of their Associate Choice Program, in which store-level associates voted for their charity of choice, we were fortunate to receive a $100,000 grant. That $100,000 grant helped provide 344 children with a backpack of food for weekends for an entire school year, and to procure and transport an additional 300,000 pounds of food that we were able to use to feed the hungry. Since beginning the retail store pickup program, the 12 South Dakota stores have donated more than 2.7 million pounds of food product to help us in this fight, with nearly half of that product being in the form of meats, produce, both which are difficult for us to receive through private donations. The two Sioux Falls Walmarts have provided a combined average of over 40,000 pounds of product to us each and every month. I would close by saying that in these discussions, I would just simply hope that all that Walmart has done to help us in the fight against hunger is not forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Andy Cavernbaugh. I'm a development officer for Sanford Children's Hospital and Children's Miracle Network. Again, I'm here in support of Walmart and for what they do for us. Walmart is actually a national sponsor for 170 Children's Miracle Network hospitals nationwide. We're fortunate in our region to have Sanford Children's right here in our backyard, and locally they've raised over $2 million locally since 1994, actually, in benefiting and helping sick and injured children. Through that, they've also been able to sponsor one of our wings in our Sanford Children's Hospital, and without their support, we won't be able to accommodate 38,000 to 40,000 patient visits every year. So we're very fortunate to have them. Their sponsorships, locally and nationally, are very beneficial to us and other Children's Miracle Network hospitals. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members, very familiar faces. I'm Darrell Nordquist, CEO for Special Olympics South Dakota, and I have been a resident of Sioux Falls for 23 years and seen a lot of growth, and it's an amazing city. Growing up in Watertown, it's kind of fun to watch. But no matter what you believe should go into this location, this type of growth is wonderful for Sioux Falls, in my opinion. With it, although, however, comes challenges like the expanding of roadways. We all should consider Walmart's very giving support of communities in which they do business. Very evident in their areas of focus in the communities in which they support. One area is education. Walmart re-engages students who have dropped out of high school. They support teachers and promote child literacy. Very beneficial in the community and one specific neighbor, I would think. Workforce development and economic opportunity is another area that Walmart gives to. This is a favorite of mine. Walmart does job placement efforts. They'll do career counseling. And of course, they also employ those with disabilities. And being with Special Olympics, they employ many of our participants. Health and wellness is another very good example of Walmart's giving. Walmart has supported Special Olympics and other organizations, and in particular Special Olympics with the, we're promoting and growing a free health screening for all of our intellectually disabled participants across the state. Fourth one is environmental sustainability. Waste reduction programs and sustainable agriculture are a couple of initiatives in that category. Hunger relief is their final category, and Matt mentioned the tremendous amount of food that they give nationwide in the amount of $2 billion. You know, after Mr. Cooper's report, it truly sounded like Walmart is a very good neighbor and wanting to help, even as they've have the possibility of supporting even the road improvements. I think that's called a good neighbor. I have to say, Walmart is the type of neighbor we need to invite into our communities in Sioux Falls all the time with the way they give. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darrell.
May I ask what this has to do with zoning?
Sir, welcome. Please come forward, please. Thank you. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. I'm Elizabeth Whaley, President and CEO of the Great Plains Zoo, and I just want to thank Walmart for its philanthropy and generosity in our community. Walmart truly is a corporate citizen that gives back to our community. Just last year, Walmart announced a $100,000 gift to the Great Plains Zoo to build a new flamingo pond. And it's these kinds of private investment from corporations and individuals and others that helps build the kind of zoo that we're all proud of today. In addition, scores of Walmart employees volunteer at the zoo and other nonprofit organizations within our community every year. And Walmart has put, as you've heard, hundreds of thousands of dollars of charity dollars into our community, supporting not only the Great Plains Zoo, but really important programs like Feeding South Dakota, like Children's Care Hospital, and so many other worthy organizations. And we are grateful for that support.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Huther, City Council. My name is Steve Hanselman. I'm the market manager here in South Dakota, and I've worked with Walmart for 24 years. My family and I have lived in Sioux Falls for 13 years. We live about 5 minutes away from the proposed third Walmart store. I have 2 boys. They go to school in Harrisburg. My 9-year-old son, Connor, goes to Journey. And openly, I'm sure if we were going to build the store next to Journey, some of these same concerns would come up. Here's what we can commit to. Walmart will be a good neighbor. You know, Walmart, to our company, safety of our customers and our associates is our #1 priority. When it comes to following the laws around compliance, we work hard every day to follow those laws. I'm not going to repeat all the things our wonderful associates have done with their time and generosity. I could be up here all night sharing great things that we've done for Sioux Falls, and we will continue to do with Sioux Falls. Our company is founded on 3 basic beliefs: respect for the individual, service to our customers, and striving for excellence. We're not a perfect company, and I will tell you that every day we work hard to do what's right, and we'll continue to do that. You know, we'll create 220 jobs here in this community with this third Sioux Falls store. Some of those may be for a 16-year-old high school student that's looking for a job, and for others it could be a career. You know, at the end of the day, here's what we will commit to. We'll be a great neighbor, and we'll help thousands of people in this neighborhood save money so they can live better. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council folks. My name is Andrew Coppersmith. I just a small town farm kid from Gettysburg, South Dakota, who got in with Walmart as a career option after college. And I'll tell you, the things that I've been able to see in my years with Walmart have been great. We've done so much as a company. You've heard the testimonies of folks that have come up and told their stories about their organizations. What I'm here to talk about mostly is just the opportunities that this store would give your constituents, folks like myself. My wife and I have lived in Sioux Falls for a few years, and in the time I've been in Sioux Falls, I've married my wife, we've given birth to a child, and built our family here. Love this community. love what you guys are doing to build the community. This is a great opportunity for you, and I certainly hope that you will vote in favor of this proposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Brian Cutting. I'm with Walmart Stores. I'm a real estate manager representing the Northern Plains. As the last speaker, I just wanted to take the moment to introduce ourselves, introduce our team. I know there's going to be several questions, and I wanted to make sure that you know that we have the staff here prepared and ready to answer some questions. There's myself, Brian Cutting, Ryan Ersick from our Public Affairs and Government Relations team, Patrick Connect, who is with Boyce Greenfield Law Firm here in Sioux Falls. He is a local law help. And from our engineering team, Rick Rolfing and Shane Michael from BFA and Rick Laughlin from HDR, our traffic consultant. Also, you've heard from several from our Walmart operations team, from our market manager, Steve Hanselman, as well as folks from our West store, as well as our East store here in Sioux Falls. Joe Bergsmith, John Morrill, Ted Wellnoffer, Andrew Coppersmith, Chad Thomas, and Greg Brokemeyer. Hope I didn't botch those too much, gentlemen. But we're here ready to answer your questions. I don't know what more can be said. We are excited to be here. We are excited for the prospect of being a good neighbor and to continue to develop Sioux Falls with new jobs, with opportunities to shop and opportunities to work in the local community. This process has been wonderful, and I again want to thank you guys for the time that you have taken, for the myriad of emails, for the phone calls, for the meetings, for the preparation. We ourselves have had the opportunity to meet with several of our opponents, and we're grateful for them and for the questions that they bring up to these kinds of meetings. We've met with the Sioux Falls Christian School. We have met with the property owners to the north of the apartment buildings. We have met with the Save Our Neighborhoods team. So we are here to answer whatever questions you have, and I thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you. Sir, did you want to speak to this item? Okay, very good.
My name is David Moore. I live at 5809 South Tomar Road. I'm a degreed engineer with a background in construction. Staff has consistently stated that the planned Hy-Vee is the same or larger than this supercenter, going so far as to produce their site comparison. What we have done on the first page there, was we combined the Hy-Vee site with the original 2006 development plan. And as you can see, from the original building sizes, we counted the parking spaces instead of staff estimate. The true shown Walmart development is bigger by 16,800 feet and 120 parking spaces. HDR has submitted what appears to be a corridor study and not a traffic study by performing calculations on only 8 intersections. It clearly misses the 5-mile draw that these stores have and does not include neighborhood streets, the collector streets, or traffic volume changes with delays orienting north of 57th or west of Minnesota. However, in the printed specific findings of HDR's report, it states that 69th Street west of Cliff Avenue will go from its current service of 7,100 to 24,000 cars per day. This 300% increase apparently does not justify an intersection study. We believe the council should know and be able to explain how the level of services are going to change at the intersections of Tomar, St. Andrews, Prairie Green, Doral, and Minnesota with this type of traffic growth. With no traffic light being put on at Jane and Cliff as per the city engineer's opinion and the HDR memo, we still have not heard if that changes the existing truck route. Now, we have shared with the noise study for on-site delivery trucks driving by next to a property line with the planning staff, the planning commission, and you members of the council. And other than a statement that staff considers the residents in those apartments a buffer zone, we have no answers which are going to provide the violations to the noise ordinance for the north side apartments and also for the homes across Cliff Avenue. We have discussed the volume of the detention pond and how it fills with 2.5 inches of rain, and that has occurred over 25 times since from 2000 to 2010. But only under closer review have we noted that basically due to the high water table in the area, limiting the bottom of the detention pond, the buildup of the pond, that they are going to end up building up this building site such that the southwest corner, the floor elevation will be 10 feet above 69th Street at that location. The landscaping plans show many areas that are at city maximum allowable slopes. The utilization of the green evergreen screen trees, which is over the 25% total allowed on these slopes, will effectively shade and prevent any ground soil retaining plants, and you're going to lead to erosion. It just shows how this building is crammed in and is way too big for the lot. For all these reasons I've outlined, show why this building is too big, doesn't meet the land use map, and is not comparable with the previous plans. We request that you join with the 2 planning commissioner members, the over 1,600 petition members that we had, and deny the zoning. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you. This will be our last speaker. Welcome.
Good evening. Eric Willardson, Land Engineering. Very quickly, one thing that I don't see has been addressed tonight, and that is the change from the office to the RC zoning for a commercial use. That RC use is a plan for a detention pond for the commercial use, and why we would rezone that from office. I guess I would see that should be rezoned to commercial. By rezoning that to recreation conservation, I guess I want to make sure you understand that what that does for platting fees is reduces the platting fees on that 2.6 acres to 0. And that is an area that is directly impacted by this site. And why should that area not either be left office or be required to be part of the commercial area, is that is where they're taking care of their stormwater from the commercial area. By rezoning that to RC, effectively, you are reducing the platting fees required from the replat to 0. Thanks.
I want to thank you all for your comments tonight, for being professional, for being cordial, for being neighborly. Great job. We'll now move to the portion of the meeting where the council now has the opportunity to engage those who have spoken or anybody else. We'll now move to that point. Council, I now place it in your hands. Councilor Aguilar.
Yes, I have a couple questions for Director Cooper. I attended the Planning Commission meeting, and the distance from the Walmart property to Sioux Falls Christian is stated differently this evening than it was at the Planning Commission meeting. Could you tell me why?
Again, we took another look at it, and if we can go back to that slide. We took another look at the ordinance that says you measure that distance from the nearest building corner to the nearest property line of the school. And so we took a look at there. Again, it's a proposed site plan. That could change with a conditional use permit.
So how was it measured originally?
I think it was based on an earlier estimate that we had. I don't remember what the distance was that we said before, but
It was less than 500.
I think we were saying it was approximately
400. Well, no. Well, I thought it was like 480 something. So it was measured differently
Yes.
originally, and now you've remeasured.
Based on the latest proposed development plan, yes.
Okay, we have a 2035 comprehensive plan that I believe was approved in 2009. However, we're told that references in the plan to proposed zoning classifications in neighborhood employment centers as commercial 1 and 2 do not exist in current ordinance. How can this be?
Okay, that, I'm going to have Jeff Schmidt respond to that because he's been getting that question quite a bit. And it goes back to the comprehensive plan amendment, but I'll let Jeff respond to that if that would be okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Jeff Schmidt from the City of Sioux Falls Planning Office. I believe your question was in regards to looking at the Neighborhood Employment Center.
Right.
Okay. I'll be able
And
to.
the definition that's in the...
Absolutely. You're correct in that it was adopted back in December of 2009. This is the table that everybody's referring to. You have 4 columns in the 2035 plan. The future land use type is the first column, so the land use type is a neighborhood employment center. The second one is the future land use objective. So based upon what objectives are, it should be at the intersection of 2 minor arterial streets, which this is, 69th and Cliff. It should provide typically convenience items such as gas, food, and personal services, which this one currently does. And again, as the neighbors mentioned, approximately 5,000 people should be serviced by this. Then you look at the criteria, and we've agreed to the criteria that it should be no more than 60 acres and less than 50% commercial, which this is. So then you get to that last item, that last column, which says the allowed proposed zoning districts. Those aren't in place right now. If the request on this 1 acre O office was to go to C1, we would review it, but there is no commercial 1 at this point. So we can't proceed forward with that.
So are there plans for this to?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We spoke to the Land Use Committee for the sign code section yesterday on Monday, and we've continued to give Land Use Committee updates about the zoning ordinance. Parking's being updated, landscaping's being updated, all the forms and districts are being updated, the entire document is completely being updated.
Could you define minor arterial road for me?
Certainly. We have principal arterial roads, such as Highway 100 around the city of Sioux Falls, and Minnesota Avenue, and then other arterial roads, which are trunk systems, are arterial streets. 69th Street, 57th Street, Cliff Avenue, Louise, Western Avenue, 41st Street. Those are minor arterial streets.
Cliff is considered a minor arterial.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Councilor Entman.
Jeff, question here, just to follow through on that. People keep referring to the fact that this is a neighborhood employment center, okay, which is showing there. But they're saying that it's a regional employment center. So what is the difference, if you could speak to that, please? Here it says 5,000 people it serves in a neighborhood, and the regional employment center is what?
The regional employment, as they mentioned, is in regards to 40 to 100,000.
Jeff, if you could repeat that to the folks
Certainly.
at home.
On the sub-regional, they mentioned on the very bottom, it's that middle section there, sub-regional will be 40 to 100,000. The misunderstanding or the issue that we're really debating is what are the objectives? It doesn't say there the criteria for that. Sub-regional should be 320 acres. We don't want it to be 320 acres. That would be 160 acres of commercial development. We don't want 69th and Cliff to be 160 acres of commercial development. That's the criteria. So you have to look at what's the objective. Well, the objective is we like to serve around 5,000 people and have gas, food, produce, and personal services at this location. That's a neighborhood employment center.
Councilor Jameson.
I have a question for the the applicant if they're willing to, I guess the option is, are they willing to wait until 2015 or 2016 until that road is improved, and or participate in the expense of improving that road and recover those costs later?
Sure, thank you. Good question, and this is one that we've been discussing with several council members in the last several days, in the last week or two. Right now, we don't have obviously we don't have a comprehensive plan as to what that whole big picture looks like, what the exact timing looks like, what the exact expense looks like, what the system, what the process looks like. So right now I cannot commit that we will do X, Y, and Z. What I can commit to at this time is that, given that is kind of a CUP type issue, is that we do want to work in good faith with the city, with staff, and with the council in the weeks that come as we prepare for the CUP process to come, to look at those three alternatives that were proposed and see what kind of program can we implement as a city and as business to be mutually beneficial to all. I can't answer you if it's a question of months. We can certainly entertain that. If we're looking at waiting years, that gets much more difficult for our shareholders to swallow.
Councilor Henneman, or Councilor Henneman, if you could just, Council, any other comments? Very good, Councilor Henneman.
Mark Cotter, I have a question for you, please. Concerning streets, can you tell, and Councilor Jameson brought up the 2015-2016 timeline for the Cliff Avenue improvements going north of 69th Street. Can you enlighten us as to what those proposed improvements are going north, please, from that intersection?
I can, and just to back up for a moment to set it up, we've studied this corridor from 229 all the way south to 85th Street, and that process started back in 2007, and in 2009 we started to meet with all the adjacent property owners at this respective intersection to model the traffic that we expect the entire area would be matured out to at 2035, and ultimately size the roadways and the access points accordingly. And so now we've taken a step back with that corridor study, and you'll start to see the first phase of improvements being built in 2012, which will be at 57th Street and Cliff Avenue. That's going to greatly increase the operation efficiency of that intersection from about 54th Street south. So we really can greatly reduce the delay that people experience today at that intersection. Now going further south, the corridor study identifies that as not only Sioux Falls development increases, but Harrisburg, Canton, Northwest Iowa, that traffic that comes into Sioux Falls, we know that that growth rate in traffic will be there over time, and so then we start to phase in when we expect to make the next improvement after this year's improvements made. And just yesterday I had sent a list to the City Council of our priority list for the community for the next 2 years, for 13 and 14. And so based on where this project would fit in the priority list, and I would estimate right now based on priority it would be in the 2015 to 2016 timeframe. And what we would build is additional lanes south of 57th Street through the intersection of 69th and Cliff, and then we would go east and west for the corridor study, and that image has been up previously tonight. And so that would not only add, we'd have a 5-lane section from 57th Street south to 69th Street, but then at the intersection of 69th Street, that's when we add additional lanes for left turn lanes and right turn lanes, and so we can make sure that we can minimize the delay there. So first and foremost, first phase goes in place 2012. That project's been bid. It will be constructed before school is back in session, and then I would expect that we would bring this priority forward in 2015-16 based on our current priority list and funding levels.
Councilor, I'm going to continue.
Another question concerning drainage, and I think you or one of your staff would best be able to answer this. And it's come up several times concerning this drainage, and we do know that when you got a big building and a lot of blacktop lot, you get a lot of water that runs off because there's no grass to soak it into. We all know that. And it's, the comments have been made that it'll go into a retention pond. You know, there's definitely questions concerning the retention pond, the construction of that, and what it's capable of handling, and all those things. But from there, it goes. It was made. It was stated it goes into a storm sewer. Now, some folks have told me that that storm sewer then drains in front of the school there into the drainage ditch there. From there, it goes on downstream, and ultimately ends up possibly causing some problems. As we've seen in Schindler in the past. Can you address that drainage for us a little bit, please? Enlighten us a little bit more on that.
Well, I think specifically, and I'll have Andy Berg address it as well. He's our principal drainage engineer. But essentially, this is the overland drainage path that the water takes today. And when you develop land, you take into account that you're going to have impervious area. So then you have to set up your respective detention ponds so it catches that water and then slowly releases it, so you're not making a detriment effect on downstream property from development. And so, Andy, is there anything in addition you want to add to that?
The main issue is the increased runoff from, like you said, the buildings and the parking lots. The detention ponds hold that water back. This area will also have a water quality aspect to it, so that it's a BMP, we call them. And that's to clean up that water, help get some of those pollutants to settle out in that pond before it leaves the site and goes through the storm sewers and downstream. That portion of it is required for all of these sites. The detention, we are aware of drainage concerns downstream. What they've proposed in their preliminary drainage report was that they're reducing flows as they currently come off the site to lower than what is now on their proposed designs. So the anticipation is that that may improve drainage downstream if everything comes through that way in the final design.
Councilor Hanneman?
Is there requirements on these drainage ponds as far as clean out? At what point in time the sediment builds up in there? We know that. There are pollutants in there because everything running across pavement will ultimately get polluted in some way or form. So is there a requirement for cleaning out these ponds, and who determines that? And do you check the water quality that's discharged out of these retention ponds?
To address the last part first, the water quality is not tested coming out of individual BMPs. It's relied on from the BMP design that is taken from nationwide designs out there. So we don't test the water quality coming out of it. We do test water quality in various locations throughout the city during wet weather events. Usually it's at city properties, city ponds that are downstream of places like this. The clean out of it, we have staff that go out and periodically inspect BMPs, private and public, throughout the city. If there are maintenance needs, whether it's appearance, filling in with sediments and pollutants, or disrepair of their outlet structures, we notify the owner that they need to repair those.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Urbanbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is going to be for Jeff Schmidt. Thank you, guys. I wanted to thank the folks that are here, and thanks all the folks that have presented tonight. My question, Jeff, is I'm struggling with this neighborhood versus regional employment center. And because I understand full well that we can deal with the traffic, I understand full well we can deal with the water issues, we can deal with all of these problems that we're talking about tonight. But the thing I'm concerned about, and I think you know me well enough to know that I'm a visual person, and so I'm looking at the Hy-Vee store on 26th and Marion. So everybody get it in your mind, because that's how I work, okay? Hy-Vee on 26th and Marion. There are 73 acres of commercial land there, correct?
Correct.
I emailed you the other day, Jeff, and asked you how big is that Hy-Vee store, and you said it's 89,000 square feet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it has 414 parking spots, right?
Correct.
Okay, so now think about this intersection at 69th and Cliff. 27 acres of commercial, is that right?
That's correct, of commercial on the north, south, and east. So on the northwest corner, it's apartments. There is no commercial there.
27 acres.
Correct.
Okay, going back, 26th and Marion is 73 acres.
Correct.
69th and Cliff is 27 acres.
Yes.
The Hy-Vee store at 26th and Marion is 89,000 square feet. The proposed Walmart store at 69th and Cliff is 150,000 square feet. Are these numbers right? Am I?
Yes, they're correct. And at 16th and Cliff, we basically have one large store. We don't have standards or requirements on the size of the stores they built. Okay. At 26th and Marion Road, you have multiple large stores. So you already have the Lowe's and the Hy-Vee, and then you have all the land in between there, and then everything down to Lake Lorraine.
And that's my point. Between Lowe's and Hy-Vee and all the way down to Lake Lorraine, big open spaces.
No.
And to a lot of, when those buildings were built there, big open spaces, so that when folks built there, they knew what was there already.
Okay.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure the numbers were correct, because that comes down to my concern then, is that, and I'll be very honest with you, that I struggle with putting that size of a building on that small a piece of ground. You know, all of the other things can be figured out. They really can. I mean, we can build streets and we can do drainage ponds and we do all of those things, but to squeeze this giant building into that little tiny space right up next to people's patio doors is my struggle. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Rolfing.
I'm having the same struggle that Councilor Urbanbach is having, because what I look at, I'm looking at 69th Street, and you've got the neighborhood employment centers at 69th and Western, no big box. 69th and Minnesota, no big box. We've got 69th and Cliff coming up, and we're going to have a big box, or we are proposing to have a big box. Plus, we've got some schools and some other things there. We don't have that on 69th and Western, 69th and Minnesota, and you're telling, as I was being schooled or enlightened by the traffic people, that 69th and Western has about the same amount of traffic that we're projecting as this will have. I have a hard time believing that. Jeff, can you? It's been told to us, but that we're going to have by the people from the neighborhood that they're projecting 24,000 cars. Can you, or someone, can you tell me why that is or is not true?
Heath Hofteser, Principal Traffic Engineer for the City of Sioux Falls. The numbers that are being talked about, the 7,000 or the 7,100 increasing to 24,000, are the 7,100 is the existing volumes on 69th Street, the 24-hour count west of Cliff Avenue. The 24,000 number is the 2035 volume on 69th Street west of Cliff Avenue. The change in the study, or the change from the existing volumes to when the Walmart store opens, is an increase from about 7,100 to about 10,000.
Oh, another 3,000 cars a day.
Yeah, on 69th Street.
Okay. Okay. I think, Mike, Mike, could I ask you another question? This may be a conditional use permit type thing too, but can you enlighten me on this changing that 2.8 acres, is it, in the back part to recreational conservation instead of office, and the tax implications?
I don't know. In terms of property tax, I don't know what that would be, because I think ultimately it's going to be based on the use of the property, not the zoning. I mean, I believe that's the way that the county would assess the property, is based on the use and not the zoning.
One last thing.
And we have, throughout the city, the recreation conservation is used because we know we brought to you many, many other zoning items in neighborhoods that we're changing property to RC for drainage purposes. So we do that all over the city.
Okay.
That's very common practice.
One last thing, if I might, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Elfing.
Mike, we've been talking a lot about transition, and the transition on that office, northwest corner.
Yes.
From office to commercial. Does that allow enough transition to the individual homes, kitty corner from that piece of property? To be enough transition?
Directly to the north is apartments, and directly to the west is apartments.
That wasn't my question. I said kitty corner.
To the northwest.
To the northwest, because that's an individual home right there.
Yep. And you look at, again, the conditional use, we would show what the proposed landscape buffer is going to be around that parking lot.
Okay.
What kind of trees is it going to be? How close are they going to be together?
No, I mean, don't we have transition that we've been talking about all the time from commercial to a duplex or to a fourplex or to a deal, and then all of a sudden here we're going right there, we're at an individual home.
Yes, the transition there would be the parking lot. Yep, that's what they're proposing, yes.
So we're not going to have any transition in this situation?
If we don't approve that, then they would still use it for, potentially they could use it for their entrance, but not the additional parking.
So by office, they would just not do anything with it, leave it O, and put a driveway in there?
Yes, they could still do that. Or they could put a small office building in there.
Then what would happen to their entrance?
The entrance would still be allowed no matter what the zoning is.
Okay.
Yep. So that driveway that's shown is not dependent on office or commercial zoning. I think that's maybe what you're trying to get at.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
That would be allowed either way.
Okay.
And what Hy-Vee, or what, geez, now I'm confused. What Walmart is proposing is saying they would like to use that corner for additional landscaping and parking rather than putting a small office building on there.
I see.
With
That's what I
parking.
needed to have explained. The driveway would go in there regardless. 'Cause that would be an entrance to the office if the office was built there, or if it's
Or the
allowed
commercial
for
use.
parking, it would be.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
There you go.
Thank you.
Councilor Brown.
Mike, you've sort of led into what I wanted to talk to you about, because no matter what we do tonight, it doesn't stop Walmart from going into this spot, does it?
They would need a conditional use permit, and that would go to Planning Commission and would be very likely come to you.
Okay.
Because again, anybody can appeal a conditional use, so that
So
would
how, in summing it up, how does changing this rezoning make the plan better?
it makes it consistent with what the proposed land uses are intended to be. It makes the zoning consistent with the intended land uses. That corner for the parking lot, the east side for the detention pond.
Thank you.
Councilor Heineman.
I do have a question for a Walmart representative. I'm sorry, I can't remember the names of everybody that's out here. Please. First of all, I'd like to thank you and your team for being here. And as a community, we are very fortunate to have you here. I am very familiar with how giving you have been in our community, and you do provide a great service. And I'd like to thank you for your professionalism in answering the questions and stuff that I've had as we've gone forward here. But one of the questions I do ask is, that I'm going to ask you again, is why this site? There's been some comments from people that I know everybody has different concepts, from small to large to medium size. I'm very familiar with that. A lot of retailers have those kinds of different things. But why this site, and how do you answer the fact that some people are asking the question, or they make a statement that Walmart does not build in family neighborhoods or around schools, and here we are with this proposed facility?
Fair enough. So if I understand the question, complex question, why here and why adjacent to these uses?
Yes.
Is this a first time for Walmart? Walmart in all has well over 4,000 stores in the United States, and we are located anywhere from in between farm, a corn farm on this side and a wheat field on that side, to downtown Los Angeles. I mean, we have been here and there and everywhere. We have scoured, and please believe me when I say we have scoured this part of the market in depth. We did not just drive down the street and say, kind of like that street corner, although we did, kind of like that street corner. We looked at this facility, or this site. We looked at sites to the south. We looked at sites to the south and west. We looked at sites all around this region, knowing that given the volume of our 2 existing stores, we need a 3rd store to be able to best serve our customers in the city of Sioux Falls. Really, it comes down to a question of if you want to narrow it down to this site versus, let's say, there's 2 other hypothetical sites, and we looked at several sites around this area. One question you look at is the zoning correct? You know, is this site within city limits? Is this site zoned correctly? That's one thing we look at. You know, is there risk involved with annexation, trying to annex into the city and so forth? Another question is the environmental concern, which we've heard much of tonight. You know, my options here are to take a site that has been built, you know, all around. We have a football stadium to the south. We have apartments to the west and to the north, and you can see the infrastructure for residential to the east. There are no wetlands on this site. We will not, you know, we are sensitive to the environment, and we will not have any impacts to wetlands on this site. We will not require an Army Corps of Engineers permit to develop this site. Had we gone to the south, or had we gone to the south and west, trying to get my directions straight here, there would be additional impacts to natural species, whether it be wetlands or otherwise, that you have to weigh in the balance and say, do I want to take a site that's, you know, for all intents and purposes, shovel-ready and intended for a commercial use, or do I want to go greenfield and develop undeveloped land when there's developable land already available? Which is more responsible? That's kind of one of the questions that we have to answer. As far as adjacency to schools and so forth, this would not be the first time that we have built a facility within close proximity to a school. As Steve mentioned, we have a fantastic crew in our stores. And are we perfect? No. But we are diligent to make sure that the questions surrounding alcohol sales to minors, tobacco sales, and so forth are addressed responsibly and within the law.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing.
Councilor Jamison.
A couple of questions, maybe start with Mike if I could. There was an issue brought up about cooperation with Lincoln County, that we aren't communicating with them or participating in this decision process with them. Could you tell us why they aren't a part of this discussion, where the city limits end, things like that?
Yeah. We have within our city limits, we have our own city zoning ordinance requirements. We also have a joint zoning jurisdiction with both Minnehaha and Lincoln counties. The joint zoning jurisdiction is that area outside of the city limits that is within our projected growth area. So as we sit down with the counties, we say, if there's a proposed change in the zoning or land use, is that consistent with what the future growth area projections show? Once property is annexed into the city, whether it's in the Lincoln County or the Minnehaha County side, then it becomes strictly within our own city jurisdiction. So we've not sat down with the counties for a particular issue like this and said, what do you think? Do you have any comments? But I think in terms of the drainage and the traffic, that's where the county commissioners came to us and said, we know that people from Harrisburg and T drive into Sioux Falls. They're going to drive to a store. They're going to drive back. What impact is that going to have on the traffic? And in terms of the drainage, is that going to be of a concern to us because of the Schindler issue? And again, I think what you've heard tonight is that this scale of development, it goes through a very extensive review by the city, by the staff, by the Planning Commission. You would get to see it again, so that all of those issues would be addressed before any final approval is given. So again, when land use decisions are being considered within the Sioux Falls city limits, it is strictly done by city council, city planning commission.
Okay, and if Steve, could we go back to the 26th and Sycamore intersection on how that was developed? What I was surprised when I saw this was that there was residential, single-family abutting the commercial. And on this new proposal, we have commercial kitty corner from a residential. But I was unaware that we were actually, how did this happen? I guess is what I'm trying to figure out, is how did this happen? Because it seems like it wouldn't be anything that we would ever duplicate.
Yeah, on the northeast corner is a manufactured housing park, which really predated this commercial development. And when that commercial strip mall was approved on the east side of Sycamore, north of 26th Street, again, there was extensive fencing and other separation provided. The Hy-Vee store in the northwest corner, again, that came in after a lot of that residential was already there. And we had the same issues about the truck traffic coming in, loading and unloading. And if you go by there today, you'll see that they put up extensive fencing and landscaping as a way of providing that buffer. And the Lewis Drug Store was the same way. So a lot of those neighborhoods were developed probably late 70s, early 80s. And the standards that we've adopted now and going forth, and we're going to have even more of those as we bring to you more updated zoning requirements. We've got a lot more aggressive on our setbacks, our landscaping that we can use for those transition zones. So this example was just a combination of the development occurring over different periods of years and how it integrated with each other.
Thank you.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Mark Cotter. I guess I want to go back to the roads again, especially Cliff Avenue, and talk about the access to this property.
Okay.
And especially with semi-traffic. I guess my issue is, and in speaking with the Walmart officials too, is I have a problem with semis having to cross oncoming traffic to be able to get into that property. And I just see this property as being awkward for access to allow these semi-trucks to get in there and supply that property. And even off of 69th Street, I was trying to see if there was another way that they could come in there. I'm really concerned about that intersection at Jane Avenue, how that is all going to work. And right now, if we're talking that we can't expand that road till 2013, 14, 15, that a semi is going to have to sit in that one lane for southbound traffic and jam up that entire road and intersection.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I was told that the traffic signal is off the plan. Is that correct?
Right. We would not support it based on how that would address the progression of vehicles on Cliff Avenue. And I think just from a traffic standpoint and an ingress egress for the development, I'll have Heath start, and then I know they also have their traffic engineers here as well. So Heath, do you want to come up and address?
Up on the screen, I have the, this is the what I want to say, the capacity analysis for the intersection of Jane Lane and Cliff Avenue for the opening day situation with the store being built and with the existing traffic that's out there added to the traffic from the store. It was discussed earlier that there is a level of service F at this intersection under these conditions. As you can see on the screen, that it's one movement. It's the westbound left out of the parking lot that is a level of service F. It's near the bottom right. Yep, right there. It's the westbound left out of the parking lot that's the level of service F at the intersection. The other movements at the intersection with the existing lanes on opening day would be D's, B's, and A's. They would be considered acceptable movements. this westbound left turn out of Jane Lane onto Cliff Avenue is very comparable to the intersection at it's the High V at 26th Street and Marion Road, the driveway at Berkshire Boulevard and Marion Road, trying to take the westbound left out of that intersection. That's also a level of service F that's at 104% capacity. This particular one is at 109 is what it's projected at. That's just to give you an idea of what the failed condition is here that we're looking at for this movement, and it's something that we have around the city at a lot of different commercial developments, and we weigh looking at the different options through the traffic study. The traffic signal at this intersection makes it so that the level of services are better for coming out of the driveway, and they overall meet what we ask for our standards. That would be a C or better in that situation, but we felt that it was too big of an impact on Cliff Avenue traffic, just traveling northbound and southbound. It would stop too many cars on Cliff Avenue. So we thought it was a better solution to not have the signal in place and have the westbound left out of the parking lot at this location being at capacity. Okay. Yeah, and for this particular intersection, for the semi-traffic, it would be the southbound left movements and the northbound right movements, which neither of those movements are failed at this intersection. That's where the semis would be entering this driveway to get into the development.
Thank you.
Council, you've had some really engaging questions and good comments. Realizing that we don't have to end those questions or end those comments, I would ask you to consider making a motion. And again, we can continue the discussion after that, but just in the spirit of moving the meeting to the next phase, would anybody be willing to make a motion on this particular item?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second, Jamison.
Councilor Erpenbach has made a motion to approve item number 50. It was seconded by Councilor Jamison. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Entenmann.
Just a comment. The process has went very well. Both the citizens and their involvement has been super. They've answered questions for us. The professionalism of the Walmart people is unquestionable in this case, and I'd like to thank you all for your involvement and your passion on this.
Councilor Karski.
Thank you, and again, I want to thank everybody, both proponents and opponents, for basically sticking to, for the most part, the subject at hand, as this is a rezoning issue. And I've made it my personal mission of keeping neighborhoods and buffer zones as an important part of neighborhoods, and many of the homes in this close proximity to this property were built when this property was zoned for multifamily. It's slowly been eroded over time from that original intent, and I really can't support further rezoning of this property to more commercial from the office. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Aguilar.
As Councilor Brown stated, I do understand that with the 14.2 acres already zoned C4, whether the rezoning request is approved or not, Walmart can go forward and apply for a conditional use permit without the rezoning of this property. We have been advised by the city attorney's office that each of us is acting as a land judge, making the determinations in this case, that we are only looking at the 3.8 acres they are requesting to be rezoned. It has been stated that the City Council should consider the general impact on health, safety, and general welfare of the community in determining whether the 3.8 acres should be rezoned. However, those 3.8 acres are part of the larger plan that has been presented by the applicant. I believe the applicant's plans do impact the health, safety, and general welfare of the neighborhoods surrounding it, from traffic concerns, possible drainage issues, to current ordinances that we have in place. Therefore, I too will be voting no on the rezoning of the 3.8 acres on the property at 69th and Cliff.
Councilor Rolfing.
Just a quick statement that's not quite so formal as the other ones, but I'm gonna vote no on this also for the same type of reasons, and I'm also gonna urge the Walmart people to take a look at some other locations, the one south. We want you in town, and I agree with with Councilor Endemann. Your professionalism, what you do for Sioux Falls and for the people and for the towns that you're in is unquestionable. But I think you've made a pick here that is, someone's giving you some bad advice, let's put it that way, I think. And I'd like to have you in Sioux Falls. I'd love to have you as a neighbor because I live in that neighborhood. But I'd like to have you a little bit south of there. And I would urge you to be part of it, part of the community. And I think the council will do everything we possibly can to help you be part of our neighborhood, just a little bit south of there. So the safety, the traffic thing just bothers me dramatically, and the safety part of that also, and that's why I'll be voting no.
Councilor Buck.
I just wanted to add to these folks who are very wisely speaking about things that aren't going to necessarily work in this neighborhood. I want to remind you again, a visual person, think about when we talked about TJN Enterprises moving into the Stockyards area across from our Jewel Falls Park, and think about how obsessed some of us were about how awful that could have been. And I want you to then think about those folks that are in the audience tonight and those people that signed that petition in that neighborhood, and how this particular proposal would impact their neighborhood in a similar way. I mean, maybe not as ugly, and I too appreciate Walmart and the giving that you've done, but we have to look very seriously at how this impacts this neighborhood, and I still think it is too large a building on too small a space, that there are ways to work around this. And I realize, Mr. Cooper, that we're talking about land use only, but the first step toward conditional use permit is to change the zoning, and so I will also be voting no.
Well, Council, I want to thank you for your efforts, of course, tonight, and also the people of Sioux Falls that are watching on TV as well as that are in the audience here tonight. Folks, before your City Council votes tonight, I would ask you to remain cordial, remain polite, and be respectful of their work, as well as of the process that you've just gone through. Their role is not easy. You cannot imagine the sacrifice that these women and men are making and the amount of time and effort that all of them have put into this process, into this particular topic, as well as I also want you to be cognizant of the fact that even beyond the council, you've got a number of employees that work for you. They are also your public servants, and they have also put forth an incredible amount of time and effort on this particular topic. Whether you plan to boo after the vote is completed, or whether you plan to cheer after the vote is completed, I would ask you to do neither. I would ask you to be respectful of this council, be respectful of the process, and celebrate the work that these women and men have indeed performed for you and the other great people that live in this community and in this state. With that in mind, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Council members Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
No.
Rolfing?
No.
Aguilar?
No.
Anderson?
No.
Brown?
No.
Entenmann?
No.
Erpenbach?
No.
That has failed 1-7. Item 51.
Item 51 is a first reading in ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Appendix C of the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at 9101 East 10th from the RC Recreation Conservation District to the RR Rural Residential District. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Ms. Cooper.
Okay, here's an item that we do work with the county on. This is an item that's being requested for rezoning to allow 3 single-family residential properties.
Folks, if I could just ask you, the meeting is continuing. If the press would kindly allow the meeting to continue in an orderly fashion, we also appreciate that. Thank you so much again for your presence. We certainly appreciate it. You've been incredibly patient, incredibly polite, and incredibly professional. If you could just continue at that, we'd certainly all appreciate that. Mr. Cooper, continue.
Okay. The petitioner in this item is Chris Rallis. This property is located just on the northeast corner of Arbor's Edge Development, which is in the northeast corner of Sioux Falls. This property consists of about 9 acres of undeveloped land. This is within our future sanitary sewer growth area, but currently sanitary sewer is not available in this northeast part of the area. The applicant currently has 2 building eligibilities. The rezoning would allow a 3rd site to be developed. We've discussed this with the county planning staff, with Arbor's Edge. They are going to share this mutual access road, and since it is within our projected sewer service area, they will be building these structures so that they can be hooked up to city sewer at the time that it does become available. But the recommendation from the Joint Planning Commissions was to approve this request to change it to rural residential for a maximum of 3 housing units. And we'll consider this at the joint meeting on May 21st.
Mr. Cooper, thank you. This is a first reading, folks, so we won't have the opportunity to engage the council here. But Council, did you have any questions or comments? Councilor Enderman.
Mike, just a question. They do know, or they will know, the property owners will, who build their homes there, that they will be required to hook on to the city sewer when it does become available.
Yes.
And that will be part of any agreement that you do on this.
Yeah, we'll have the rezoning, and then we'll also have a preliminary subdivision plan approval process.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Mbach.
Thank you. Mike, help me with this one. They're not in the city limits yet, is that correct?
That's correct. The city limits.
So they aren't part of the existing development, they're just going to use the same road?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councilor Rolfing.
Mike, is this one of the areas that we're looking at for possible annexation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And we'll be working with the land use committee on that plan.
Council, would anybody like to set a date of hearing and second reading for Monday, May 21st at 5:30 at the joint City Council / Minnehaha County Commission meeting for this item?
So moved, Rolfing.
Oh, Councilor Enderman's made that motion, seconded by Councilor Rolfing. If there is no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 8-0. Item 52.
Item 52 is a resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards, and is for the appointment of David Nelson to the Airport Authority Board.
Council, any questions or comments, or anybody in the audience would like to engage the council on this topic?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Aguilar.
I move approval.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Aguilar has made a motion to approve item number 52. It was seconded by Councilor Anderson, Jr. Is there any discussion on this item? Councilor Jamison.
I don't know Dave Nelson, but I've heard a lot about him from other people. And Mayor, it sounds like you've made a fine choice.
Thank you. Councilor Jamison, thank you very much. I also believe he'll serve our city well. I thank you. Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Quick question. Wasn't his name on a watch list at one time?
A watch list?
He had a little problem leaving Boston one day.
Okay, very good. Very good.
Remember that?
Well, Council, thank you very much. If there is no further discussion, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 8-0. Item 53.
Item 53 is a report of the April 20th, 2012 Notice of Transfers of Appropriations within Major Organizational Units.
Do we have to?
Mr. Mayor?
Okay. Yes, Councilor Erpenbach.
I would move to adjourn.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Erpenbach's made a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting, and it was seconded by Councilor Anderson, Jr. If there is no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Entenmann?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 8-0. City Council, highly commend you for your efforts tonight. City team, highly commend you for your efforts tonight. And to the city of Sioux Falls, thank you. What a great, great night for our city. The process is certainly working. Have a great, great night, everybody, and make it a great evening. This meeting is adjourned.